On July 12, 2025, President Donald Trump shocked the world by announcing a sweeping 30% tariff on all goods from the European Union, effective August 1st. This move catapulted U.S. tariff rates to levels unseen since the Great Depression, sending global markets into a tailspin. The tariffs, justified as a way to protect American industries, were seen by Europe as a direct economic attack. The EU, long a champion of free trade, responded with swift, targeted retaliation. Brussels unveiled a meticulously planned response. Tariff Response Package A, targeting $84 billion worth of American goods. Rather than a blanket approach, the EU aimed its counterstrike at the heart of U.S. industrial pride, the civil aviation sector. The message was clear: Europe would fight fire with fire, focusing on Boeing and Honeywell. The stage was set for a high-stakes transatlantic trade war, with both sides ready to defend their interests. This was more than a dispute over tariffs. It was a battle over the future of global trade. The opening shots would reverberate far beyond Washington and Brussels, impacting workers, companies, and economies worldwide. The EU's retaliation was surgical: an $11 billion package of tariffs, zeroing in on the American civil aviation sector. Boeing faced a crippling 35% import tax on aircraft components, making its jets far more expensive for European airlines. With $24 billion in annual sales to Europe, Boeing stood to lose billions as airlines reconsidered future orders. Honeywell too was targeted with a 20% tax on its avionics, threatening its dominance in European aerospace systems. The EU's list extended to politically sensitive U.S. exports, bourbon cars, chemicals, and soybeans, ensuring pain in key American districts. Each product was chosen for maximum political impact, mobilizing U.S. industries against the White House's trade agenda. The EU's approach was calculated: inflict economic pain where it would hurt the most, and force a domestic backlash in the U.S. The transatlantic trade war had become personal for America's industrial giants. The EU's targeted tariffs threatened tens of thousands of American jobs, especially in Washington state, home to Boeing's massive plants. A projected 15% drop in European orders could cost Washington $10.5 billion in the first year, devastating local suppliers and communities. In Arizona, Honeywell faced a $2 billion loss in European sales, putting up to 15,000 high-skilled jobs at risk. The pain extended to Kentucky's bourbon industry, with a 35% tariff threatening $700 million in exports and the livelihoods of distillers and corn farmers. The EU's strategy was clear: show that protectionism hurts the very industries it claims to protect. The first wave of EU tariffs was projected to cost the U.S. economy $11.7 billion in the first year alone. The message to American workers and businesses was unmistakable: trade wars have real, immediate costs. The ripple effects would be felt across the country, from aerospace to agriculture. The stakes for American jobs had never been higher. Europe's countermeasures also threatened its own economic interests, exposing the continent's deep ties to Boeing. Ireland's aircraft leasing industry, which finances 45% of the world's commercial fleet, faced a sharp downturn as Boeing orders dried up. The Netherlands, a key hub for Boeing spare parts, braced for a slowdown in logistics and warehousing. Luxembourg's Cargolux, reliant on Boeing freighters, faced millions in extra costs, jeopardizing its fleet renewal and competitiveness. The tariffs revealed the EU's internal divisions. Some member states stood to lose as much as they gained. The fallout underscored the complexity of global supply chains, where economic pain rarely stops at national borders. Europe's own aviation ecosystem was now at risk. For Airbus, the crisis was a windfall. With Boeing hobbled by tariffs, European airlines rushed to secure Airbus jets, especially with 60% of post-2026 delivery slots still open. Airbus ramped up production, opening a new A321XLR line in Spain and creating thousands of jobs across Europe. Major carriers like Lufthansa and Air France-KLM shifted orders to Airbus, drawn by the financial logic of avoiding tariffs. Even Boeing loyalists like Ryanair reconsidered their fleet strategies. The shift promised to realign the aviation market, strengthening Airbus and its European suppliers like Thales and Safran. The EU's tariffs, while painful for some, became a powerful engine for growth in the Airbus heartland. The balance of power in aviation was tilting rapidly. Airlines faced agonizing choices as tariffs upended years of fleet planning. Lufthansa's $14 billion order for Boeing 777X jets suddenly ballooned to $19 billion, forcing a possible switch to Airbus. Such a move meant renegotiating delivery slots, retraining crews, and managing a more complex fleet. Ryanair, built on Boeing 737s, now faced higher costs or the daunting prospect of switching to Airbus, threatening its low-cost model. The tariffs forced airlines to choose between financial pain and operational upheaval. For many, there were no good options, only costly ones. The trade war had thrown the entire industry's future into doubt. The conflict quickly moved to the World Trade Organization, as the EU invoked Article 22 to legitimize its retaliation. This triggered a 90-day window for the US to reconsider, offering a last chance for diplomacy before tariffs took effect. If the US refused, the EU's $11 billion tariff package would gain WTO backing. The legal battle was complicated by a weakened WTO dispute system, slowed by US obstruction. Still, the EU's formal approach rallied other nations concerned about US protectionism, framing the dispute as a defense of multilateral trade rules. The aviation fight was just the latest chapter in a decades-long US EU battle over aircraft subsidies. The WTO arena became a critical front in the escalating trade war. As tariffs loomed, powerful US industries mobilized. Boeing, Honeywell, bourbon distillers, and farm groups lobbied Congress, warning of job losses and economic pain. The Trump administration faced mounting pressure from its own party and business allies to reconsider. In Europe, internal divisions surfaced as Ireland, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg sought compensation for their losses. France, Germany, and Spain, home to Airbus, pushed for a tough stance, seeing opportunity in the crisis. To maintain unity, Brussels considered using EU funds to help airlines transition to Airbus, framing it as both industrial and environmental policy. The political chess match on both sides was fierce, with economic and strategic interests colliding. The outcome would shape the future of transatlantic relations. The US EU trade war plunged global aviation into chaos, threatening jobs, companies, and entire economies. Boeing and Honeywell faced billions in losses. Airbus and its suppliers surged ahead. European states tied to Boeing suffered, while others prospered. Airlines like Lufthansa and Ryanair faced costly, disruptive choices. The conflict exposed the fragility of global supply chains and the risks of protectionism. The WTO's authority was tested as unilateralism rose. The greatest costs fell on workers, consumers, and businesses caught in the crossfire. The skies had become the new front line in the battle for the future of global commerce.